Thank you, Wallace. Welcome, everyone, to our Public Works and Urban Beautification meeting for October 26th. Thanks for coming in our busy schedules, as we all know. I appreciate that. Call to order, declarations of conflict of interest. I see none. Approval of the agenda. Everything looks good there. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Yankoff. All those in favor? 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. So we have the Public Works and Urban Beautification Committee meeting of September 22nd. We have the Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities on September 15th. And we have the Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities on October 20th. They were a busy group. And moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Mr. Duffy. Councillor Duffy, all those in favor of the adoption of the minutes? Thank you. That's everyone. Any business arising from these minutes, folks? I see none. Okay. I guess I could probably just say a little bit about our awards night. It was very well, and so shortly after Fiona, but we had 5 of our 6 of our 10 applicants there to receive an award, an appreciation award for doing, for representing their businesses and helping accessibility. So Councillor Yankoff was one for the Guild. They done some tremendous work there, and so it was a good, nice evening, and it's nice that the city does that. Because we all know accessibility, we can always use improvement. So it was great. Just thought I'd touch base on that. So there's no business arising from the minutes. We'll move on to reports.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Could I add something to the agenda?
Well, we gotta go back up, okay? We did approve the agenda, but I guess we can.
Really just an introduction, if I just had a couple of questions for the manager of Public Works in regards to
Okay.
the COVID patio projects.
Right, okay, so how about, are we okay with changing the agenda, guys? We'll move back up.
I'm going to change the agenda also.
Oh, he says we're asleep on me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just a quick question to the manager when we get.
Okay, how about, we'll put it both under new business?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll need to approve the agenda one more time. All those with the changes? Great, thank you, everyone. So we'll move into reports. 6A is a street closure on named alley from King Street to Dorchester. Mr. Adams.
Thank you. My apologies. So as you can see, this is kind of the last alleyway in this area that is remaining. So we've been approached by the building owner of all the buildings surrounding this alleyway. So every property that touches this alleyway is owned by Weymouth Properties. They are working with planning at the moment to get some plans approved. I think there is a preliminary plan already approved for this area, but they would like to be able to have this closed off and purchase this slip of land so that they can incorporate it into their overall development of this portion of the block that they own. So we've looked at it. We see no use from a public standpoint for this, as it would be integrated with their future plan for this for this block. There's no city infrastructure or anything that we can find on it, and so we're recommending to move forward with the street closure, through the street closure bylaw to close off the street, because the way it's set up, it is considered a public right-of-way street. So we'd have to follow our bylaw process to close that. So I'm here getting support from this committee to start that process. And there are a number of steps that we have to do before it even comes to council for final approval.
Thank you very much, Scott. I believe Councillor Ramsey will have a question, and Councillor Yanko. Next.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. Just looking at the photo here, the picture, we're just going to be going from the white place on the right over so many feet because of the propane tanks there, and like the trucks have to get in there. Am I correct? Like the 2 propane tanks and the oil tank?
That would be on private property.
Oh, that's private property over there?
And there's where the lane.
Oh, it's just right there, at the bottom of the steps, basically on the left-hand side, right?
That's correct, yes. So Don is correct. Pretty much the property line is up against the sides of the building, where that alleyway is.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Councillor Yanko.
Just a few points of clarity for me. So the public right-of-way presently is owned by the city of Charlottetown?
That's correct.
Okay, and so the idea is, could you outline the steps? I'm assuming that there needs to be a purchase price, there needs to be a few other things. If you could just outline the steps so I can understand the process.
For sure. So the first step is to go through the street bylaw, permanent street closure bylaw. And there are a number of steps before we can even take it to council for final approval, and council has the final say over closing the street permanently. There's a number of notifications that we have to do. We do have to have a public meeting at least 2 weeks before the committee or council meeting as well. So again, it's all laid out in the bylaw under Part 5 notices. There's kind of 4 steps. There's 4 steps there that we have to follow before we can even consider taking it to council for approval. If it is approved at council for closure, then it essentially becomes a parcel of land now. It's no longer considered public right-of-way. So it's given a PID number at that point in time. And then it gets turned over to finance, who then deals with property and that type of stuff. But typically through that process, the parcel of land would then be there would be an evaluation done by a licensed appraisal company to give us an appraised value for that land for sale. And then it would go through finance and their committees if they want to recommend to sell it to the developer. And then it always comes back to council at the end of the day to make that final approval to sell it at the appraised value.
And just a quick follow-up. I noticed in some of the documents in in the information provided, oh, mercy, I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh, how rude. Jeepers creepers. So I would assume that part of that process will be a huge search back in documents. I noticed it said that it actually doesn't have a name, or it has no street name or anything like that. So all that would be covered in that process before it gets to the final steps.
Any type of legal stuff would be done before it comes to council, for sure, yes.
Thank you.
So Scott, one question I just have. Are other businesses along here using the alleyway for the store? I see some garbage cans, and so what would happen if one of them just gets sold to a developer? Then what happens to these other little businesses or houses or whatever?
So every property, if you look on that map, every property that touches that is owned by the same property owner. And they are looking at redeveloping that entire area. Again, I'm not 100% sure of the proposed plans. I don't have that in front of me, but I believe it is something amalgamating or combining all those lots and doing 1 or 2 larger buildings. So it would be at the end of the day, that's what makes it a lot easier for us on this side of things, because they're the ones are looking for that property to incorporate it into their overall plan for that area. And like I say, they own every property that touches it.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just going to say, yeah. So just maybe in discussions moving forward that that be considered as part of the. Because, I mean, the last thing we would want is to have cans having to be stuck out on the street because now that access is no longer available, right? So, and I'm sure the developer will take all that into consideration
Right.
at the time, so, Okay, thank you very much. Mr.
Oh, no, Quinn says in his letters to Donna that, they've used it since 1945 and no one else has used it. For example,
Yeah, no, okay, great. So are we looking, you're just looking for support today? There's no resolution or anything to, yeah, just for you to move, like, with the same?
Exactly. It was
wishes of the
it was
board.
support from the committee
Right.
to start the process
Okay,
of
so
doing
we
the
can,
advertising and
I
meeting with
guess
the
we
public.
can say we're all in support then?
yes, we are.
Okay, great, thank you very much. You got the green light to keep going. Okay, so, capital projects update, Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you see, our front page is starting to get full with a bunch of yellow completed numbers, which is fantastic to see. So I'll just go through where we're at with the projects still underway. Excuse me. The Public Works new building, lots of work is taking place out there these days. The building shell is pretty much completed, except for the doors on the front. And now they're starting to do work on the bringing in the plumbing and putting the concrete slab in and starting to do some interior work. All the exterior work, like asphalt and concrete, are supposed to be done in the next couple of weeks before the winter sets in. And the goal is to take ownership sometime early winter at the moment. The Eastern Gateway Phase 1, just still in design process, lots of work, a part of that project to be done. Street resurfacing is, I think, nearing complete. I think we had one maining area left to fix or finish. Short Street extension, that is fully paved, except for, I believe, the seal is left to be done. Beach Street, Park Street connector, there's a resolution that we'll talk about next for that project. St. Peter's Road roundabout, lots of work has been going on there. That's a beehive of activity and making a lot of progress over there. We're supposed to start seeing some asphalt sometime today as well. So we have the bulk of the road design or constructed on the Belvedere and Brackley Point Road side of things. Concrete curbs there, fine grading has been 95% completed, and then they're going to be paving here shortly as well. So the next big phase is the St. Peter's Road side of things. There is probably another couple days left of some underground work to do, and then it's building upwards. We expect by the end of this week, you'll see the outline, the full extent of the roundabout in some of the gravels being built up with a lot of the gravels and potentially curbs sometime later next week. So lots of work going there, and we're well on track to be done sometime next month.
If I can just interrupt there, we're getting lots of positive feedback as you can start to see the curbing. You can see the pathways and things. So, yeah, people are starting to get a little excited about it. I mean, it's a lot, it's quite a bit of pain, but for a whole lot of gain as well.
Right.
And to be so much, safety here is the utmost important with all this. But anyways, they're moving along pretty good, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So-
it's looking really good, and we're in
and,
great shape.
Councillor Ramsey has a question, but, so is December realistic? Sometime?
In November, we'll be open. That's
you
where
think?
we're ending.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey.
Yes, thanks, Scott. So far, as we go through the list, asphalt plants, I know it's a shot in the dark, but how much longer are we going to be able to get asphalt? there's some
Likely
things-
3 weeks, maybe 4.
Oh, that's good then, okay,
Yeah.
because what I've been hearing at the doors too, like there's some massive holes around some of the streets, and certainly hope to get them patched, because
Yes.
people are ruining their tires and their front ends and all that.
Yeah, so like I say, we anticipate somewhere mid-November is usually when the asphalt plant closes. I haven't heard the exact date yet, but I've heard November 15th could be the date. At the end of the day, though, it wouldn't be the first time and won't be the last time. Both contractors and us, we've had to send trucks to Moncton for asphalt late fall. Moncton, you usually see asphalt plants open. I've seen them as late as the week before Christmas. So, if there are potholes out there and we aren't able to get the asphalt locally, we will make sure, potholes are our priority since, we Fiona delayed us, but now we're starting to get back to patching our roads, and our goal is to make sure any major potholes, every driving course is suitable for the winter months.
Sorry, Scott, can I just have a fast follow? Scott, on Seaview that we took off the books this year, right? Is all that sewer and water underground work done? Would you know?
So that will be part of when we go out to engineering services. They'll inspect all that and make a recommendation for replacement. So we likely will have to do storm. I'm not sure of the condition of water and sewer, but that if it is older, we will likely replace it all as well. That's kind of the goal of these streets when we notice there's a lot of deficiencies. If it's a typical mill and pave job, and all the infrastructure is in good condition, we'll just mill and pave. But when you start to go down a street and you see, okay, we got a lot of curb issues, we know our storm might have some issues. I would hate to put money in asphalt, and then a few years later, we have to go in and dig it out. That's my goal, is trying to avoid it. I know it's painful for some residents for sure, that projects get delayed, and I feel for them. I would be frustrated too if I knew a project was coming. But we want to make sure we're not spending money twice. We want to do it right the first time. It looks bad on everyone, and it's frustrating for the homeowners when we're back again in a year or two digging up the road. So that's what we want to try to achieve in these areas that are, need a little more TLC than other areas.
So we think that'll be all looked at before next year, before the paving starts done.
It would likely be like a project, kind of how we've done Pond Street. It would be an all-in-one project where you have a contractor come in, replace the underground services, do the concrete work, and pave all under the same contract. Yeah.
Okay, sidewalks.
Under the sidewalks, so Centennial Drive, again, we got delayed. All these contracts have been slightly delayed because of the hurricane by 1 to 2 weeks is what we're seeing. That Centennial, we're making great progress out there, and hope to be done within the next week or so. And then Wedgwood, Wilmot, West Ridge, those are sections that will be started following. Same contract is doing Centennial. They'll start on that contract that was just recently awarded. Excuse me. Raiders Road, making great progress out there. We're about 75% complete on that project. And then out on McRae, the ditch work is almost complete. Be likely done this week, I believe, is the last I saw. And then they'll start building that up for preparing it for the curb and asphalt. Beach Grove Road Culvert Project, lots of activity there. They have installed the PRV, pressure relief valve chamber, and now the big one is getting the sewer line set in place. So the sewer line goes under the box culvert, so that was a priority to get done first before we get the box, start setting the box in there. And they're almost to that, they're almost complete that work as well. And then the Fitzroy Street facade. I did not realize, I forgot to update. There has been some work on this one. Our contractor has done kind of the lower, some work on the lower level. They were concerned that once snow builds up, they wouldn't be able to get some of their pieces installed, so they started doing some of that work as well. But most of that work will take place during the likely December, January work. Municipal buildings, the Honeywell contract, the energy performance upgrades, lots of work been around City Hall, Fire Station 1 and MacLear. Lots of work so far done, still lots to go. The security upgrades, so we're still working on that one. The City Hall roof has been completed. MacLear upgrades, that work won't start until the new building is operational, because that is to transfer it to make it usable for public, taking some of the Parks and Rec and water and sewer old bays and converting them for public works use. And then down here, these are we have just another couple small other upgrades. The J. Elmer Blanchard building. We've done some HVAC. We're essentially waiting for HVAC as the last little work left to be done there. Hillsborough Park, Hillsborough Park and Harts Hall. They're a little delayed. We had tendered both of these projects out to get some engineering services. Unfortunately, we got no bids, so we're exploring our options to get some services rendered for design work. The Malcolm Dare Center, we're waiting on some siding, but that's been ordered. And at the police station, we've ordered the furniture and just waiting for the furniture to come in. That will be done sometime later in the next couple months. And the last one is the Brighton Lighthouse Shoreline Protection. I expect to see some work. It's only a couple days worth of work. I expect to see that happen. They're expecting sometime this week. The rain kind of delayed them, so. And that's the highlights.
Okay, I know we had asked questions as we were going along, so is everybody good with that for now? Okay. Okay.
One, at the door last night, one question I had, Scott, is do we have a long-term plan after Fiona and all that for our shorefront to sort of, because one of these days, like everything's gonna be in the water, correct? And I sort of mentioned Eastern Gateway to them and all that, but that's just to beautify that whole area down there. But they're just wondering, do we have something in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years for all these hurricanes that are coming? Is there something to sort of protect our shoreline?
I probably let Donna can answer that. I think she might have some information.
Mr. Chair,
Councillor.
just, that's one of the projects that the Community Sustainability, Environment Sustainability Committee is working hard on, and as late as last night. If you will, there was a group, we had a panel out there talking about things like this, so are we working on it? Yes. Are we working with other partners? Yes. This is a big project for everyone, not just for the city of Charlottetown. We know where the water will come to in a 20-year storm, a 150-year storm, a 100-year storm. So in our design of buildings now that are on the waterfront, we are asking them to do, to make preparations for that during the planning. So this is not a public works issue or a planning issue. It's the whole corporate issue, and environment and sustainability are kind of leading that charge.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Donna, because when this one couple asked me last night, like, I really didn't have an answer, so thank you very much for that. And because everybody's looking for the future for their own children, their grandchildren, everything along that line. But thank you very much.
Well, if you notice, the amount of damage that there was on the shorelines, it makes everyone feel a little uncomfortable. But at the same time, when you see some projects that was on the news there last night, and the wall that they built that was grandfathered in, it didn't sustain the damage, right? So I think there is answers to our shoreline, but like Donna said, it's all levels of government and groups and organizations all on hands on deck. So hopefully, Fiona kind of really just pushing that forward a little more than the speed would have been, I guess, probably. But I think going forward, we'll hear good things. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, into tenders, and we have one, the Beach Street extension. Scott Adams.
Thank you, Chair. So everyone's aware of this project, which is the connecting Beach Street to Park Street, creating a bit of a crescent. And it would also eliminate access now to folks to get from Riverside Drive through Park Street to Kensington Road. That access would be eliminated. And there are a number of reasons for that we're recommending, and one of them is just that intersection, the number of vehicles going through Park Street to get to Belmont Street. It's not a great intersection because those two streets are very close to each other. So there's a lot of near misses. There's been a few homes hit. So this will definitely reduce those issues in the future. So we put this work out to tender, had two bidders. One was Island Coastal, one was Landmark. Neither can complete the work this year, just as a result of delays with storms and such. But we still would love to get this on the books for next year. And so you see the pricing down below. Now, Unfortunately, when we put our budget together last year, we had looked at it, did not take into the significant inflation of prices that have happened over the past 12 months since we put that budget together. So we are unfortunately over budget by about $297,000. But we hope the support of the committee and council, we can just put all those funds into our next capital budget.
Okay, thank you very much. Being in the ward that I represent, Park Street, I don't think was ever really intended to be taking the volume of traffic that's coming from across the bridge and from the bypass. So a lot of folks will have a tendency not to use the roundabouts, and they want to come up Park Street. So, will it cause some issues other places? Who knows yet? But Esther Street, Edward Street might get a little busier as well. My street, I live on Beasley, will certainly, Exhibition Drive, those streets will probably take a little more heat for sure. But I think at the end of the day, the goal is to have people use the bypass and the roundabouts that's been built to take the traffic, and instead of cutting through, they'll, I know we all have a tendency to think that if you cut through, it's faster, but at the end of the day, I think most times if you take the square, it's usually a shorter distance, right? So, as far as the budget goes in, how do we take care of the over budget, Scott?
I guess my assumption would be, because this would be rebudget for next year anyway, as
Right,
it
so we'll
would be done next
make
year, so it would be
amends.
taken into consideration at budget time.
Okay, and could, I don't know if I have it, Scott, but could you email me, or even to all of us, I guess, just the better diagram than what's on there? Like,
Absolutely, yeah, we can get you a color one and truly show how it will.
Yeah, please.
look. Yep.
I'd like to be able to,
Mr.
some
Chair.
residents have been asking for some time on it,
Yep.
so, okay, thank you, Donna.
So do you plan to bring bring a resolution to council at this time, or are you going to, how are you going to manage that, Scott?
Again, we'd like to get council now, because if we don't award it, so they only have to hold their prices for, I believe,
30 days.
30 days or 60, I can't remember. So if we delay beyond that point, then we would have to retender. And as we know, sometimes when we retender, prices continue to rise. So, and with inflation, who knows what next spring will bring, or next fall, or next winter if we retender then. So I guess our recommendation is to award it now and lock in those prices for next year.
Good. Thank you very much, good question, Donna, thank you. Sure. Lana, or Councilor Yankoff, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to our manager of Public Works, perhaps. I have three questions, and I could maybe outline all three of them, and it's all really about process. The actual closure of that throughway is not up for debate. I totally support that. But what I'm a bit perplexed around is the process. For one, we approved the amount in our capital budget last November, December, but we're only put it out to tender almost a year later in October. So now we are $300,000 over, and now we are assuming that the council of the day, after November 7th, is going to approve $300,000 in a capital budget that has not even been discussed yet. So I'm a bit concerned about process there. And I think that was my questions. And if we were to approve this, then it would have to go to finance, and we're actually asking for $300,000 to be found from somewhere else to be put into this year's budget, because we haven't done next year's budget yet. So I'm just confused around process. So if somebody can speak to process, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess Scott, I think Scott explained that if we approve it now, then we will be able to lock in the price. Where if we don't, it could be more expensive. But I do understand your question on the process, and I'm sure, like this project, Scott, you can probably elaborate, but was this delayed because of design, architectural issues that have been plaguing us for a while?
Exactly. It's just the volume of projects that we have and having the resources to keep pushing them forward. It was just a challenging year with a number of projects to get out the door, but and that's why it was delayed. We had originally tended for it to be a late season work anyway, But we had just, unfortunately, by the time everything was finalized and posted public tender, and then, of course, the storm delay doesn't help anything as well. We just were unable to get it done this year.
And I think this stems back to a lot of our projects, council's expectations. Yeah, I think, with staff, we need to explain that, the design work might only get done this year and not the actual, expecting, in these times, it's tough to be able to have the project done from start to finish, from the design to the actual completion in 1 year. I think we're finding that out in a lot of projects, right? That architectural design firms don't have the staff that they'd like to have to finish these projects quicker, which slows us down, which in turn, but I think we need to, be pretty frank on these projects moving forward, that we explain that, listen, council, we got it it's on for this year, but, there's a good chance we're only going to get design done. It's, so that we don't create the expectations with our residents, right, that the whole thing is going to be done. And your question, here it is a year later, and we approved it, and then we're still only at this stage. So I'm with you. I'm 100%. I think we need to. It's a bigger discussion for council to have on moving forward,
Yeah.
and with the
But
CAO.
as a follow-up to that, we are still asking the council of today to, without seeing the budget for the 2023-24 year, to approve $300,000 in a budget that we haven't even discussed yet. So either that, or we're going back to the regular process, which is we're over budget and we need to find $300,000 extra in this year's budget. Because I don't see how we can approve money in next year's budget when it's not been discussed yet. And maybe that's a question for our CAO, but I can't get my head around how it doesn't seem like the right process.
Yeah.
So the question, I guess, would it be that we're asking finance to find $300,000 extra, or Mr. Adams to find it in the present budget for us to approve this project to continue on, that will flow over into next year's budget, but the money was already found in this year's budget? I don't know. I'm just, yeah.
go
Again,
ahead.
it's a very
Yeah.
good question, and there is a lot of confusion on this point. You're identifying a point that has a lot of gray area. As what the chair said, you start a project this year, well, you're not going to stop it midway through, but it's important that the council of the day know when you start a project, it's going to cost $20 million, but over a 5-year period. So that requires us to budget the $25 million and then the descending amount every year. In this instance, I think that the manager is being one of the really, besides having the prices locked in, what he can do is start the project in April, as opposed to, starting to, he may do well, and then what this would effectively, there's two ways. One is to award it with the financing to come out of the 23-24 budget, or, as you say, to find the money. I would suggest we use the latter and send this to finance and ask finance to look for $300,000 in the capital budget that doesn't look to be spent. Mr. Adams can probably give us an idea of where in the Public Works budget or in another budget there might be $300,000. It's awarded, but so that next year when the new council sits down, or it'll be when the new council sits down, this will be one of their obligations. This will be an obligation to the new council if this is awarded. Any way we take it. Whether we award it out of the whether we award it and say we're going to take it out of the 23-20, we are going to award it and take it out of the 23-24 budget any way we do. That's what's going to happen ultimately. But a better process maybe go to finance. Finance may have other thoughts on doing the award.
That's the regular process.
Yeah.
We would approve it here, but it does have to go to finance for their
Yeah.
say, and they might come back and say, look, no, you need to find the money this year to earmark, or they might say, no, it's going to be spent at the 23-24 budget anyway, we'll worry about that budget. So either way, finance will at least get to review this and You know, but I guess, you know, that's from the practical and the policy side of things, but I guess, you know, from the other side, you know, the expectations and the political side of life, you know, we did kind of commit, even, I would ask Scott here, even like as short as 3 weeks ago, okay, this project is going, right? Because people have been following this online and they're wanting to see diagrams, they want to see, so we've been telling them that, yeah, this is going ahead, so it's kind of as early as 3 weeks ago, so.
Can I just ask one more
Yeah.
point of clarity? So before we can move this resolution on, I don't see that we have all of the information. I don't feel comfortable supporting a resolution when I still don't have the answer, because I don't feel comfortable spending 2023, 24 money in a budget that I haven't seen the rest of the budget yet. So can we get that answer where the money's coming from first before we make that decision?
Well, I think eventually this is going to go to council, so if finance, you know, makes a recommendation one way or the other, then that'll be discussed at the floor of council, I guess, would be the best way to answer that. But, and I think like Donna said, the lather would be to try to find the money this year. So, and I think finance will probably suggest that, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think, you know, it's like any other project. I mean, we give it its blessing, but you know, it's finance who's, you know, watching progress or watching the process. And if they don't think that, like something like yourself, if they don't think that we should be spending next year's money before we get there, well, then Scott will be probably asked to find it this year.
So should our resolution not be reflective of that and our recommendation?
Well, I think our resolutions always say upon finance's approval, right? Right?
Your resolution is usually to send it to finance
Right.
for,
For
for
their
blessing.
for their approval.
No?
No.
I think Mr. Adams kind of forgot that part of
Mostly
having to
usable
go to
generation.
finance when he wrote the resolution. Did you, Scott?
So typically, the resolution is written for council, but in the summary page, the recommendation there is for a recommendation to move forward to council, or to finance, my apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, Scott's saying that he would prefer to come out of the 23-24 Public Works capital budget. But finance, finance might say, no, I think, you know, that shortage that you have, you should find it now, though, right? So they might say that, right? But as long as, I guess as long as we're good with what the Public Works capital budget, or what the resolution's saying, then, you know, I think whatever the board feels they want to do.
Mr. Chair, I think we realize that with our capital budgets every year, that it's more of a wish list of things we want to get done. And we have money allocated to do those through the capital budget, but we never get them done. We're down around 42 or 48% of our wish list being done. Therefore, there's a big chunk of money left in March. So does that help?
Yeah.
You have 52% of your capital budget still in the bank, and we just don't have the manpower or the materials or the time or the whatever. So there's money available for capital. Some levels of government or types of government, they have expenditures and then they have commitments. As soon as a purchase order goes out to a firm that wins on a tender, and it's $800,000, that goes into the commitment column. That means that money is frozen to be used on that purchase order for $800,000.
Right.
We don't have that.
No.
Yeah, I think
Commitments?
I don't know if we call, Scott, can you help me on this one? I don't think we call it commitments, but once that purchase order is once this tender is awarded, the purchase order, then it's committed money. I don't think we call it quite like that, commitments, but once council awards the tender, that money's taken out of the capital budget.
So having said that, you're going to have to act now on what Councilor Hancock's talking about. You're either going to have to fish or cut bait. You're either going to have to forget it for this year and talk to finance in the upcoming budget, or
Make
what you say,
commitment.
Donna, is this year, it's a purchase order went out, it's frozen. So does that solve the problem?
So perhaps then the amendment to the resolution would say instead that, and this work may be carried out in 2023-24, but it's coming from the 2022-23 budget and finance, and between finance and public works, we need to find that money in, as Councillor Duffy said, projects that haven't been done yet, and the new council can decide on what the projects are next year, but I can support it if we change that last sentence, but I'm not supporting a commitment to next year's budget, not knowing what the new council will want of the day.
You know, I guess the key component, I guess, is what Mr. Adams was trying to say, is that the purpose really is we want to freeze the dollar amount, and we don't want to have to pay twice as much next year by just, you know, policies and procedures. As long as finance is giving us a blessing, I think that's the key here, and that's part of the policy, is that they agree. I mean, if they get a look at this and they say, no, Scott, you got to find the money this year, and then Scott, if he brings it forward, he's got to find the money this year. But as long as we're doing process here today, we're talking about a project that and I don't think this is the first project where we approved things and didn't spend it till, or didn't have it till next year. Like, I mean, that's been happening for
And
years.
I will say too, so we have tendered projects in January, awarded them in February for the following capital budget season. We can't issue a PO at that time because the new seat year is not open. So even if we award this, we can't issue a purchase order because we know the work's not going to be carried out until the new year. So you have to create a new PO for the year that the work is done. How you get around that is it's a letter of award. So the city, once there's a resolution, we issue from my desk a letter of award that says the city's commitment is to award this project. You've been awarded for this. Work starts on this date. So that is one thing that does happen. So in actuality, no PO will be created for this work under this fiscal at this time because the work is not going to be carried out until next year anyway.
Right. So there will be the new council eventually approving the total dollar amount at the end.
No. So you, in my experience, you guys, this council today can make the determination because once the resolution is approved, the resolution is approved. It's just in the back end, the accounting side of things. I
right.
can't
Okay.
issue a purchase order for work that's not taking place during this
Okay.
capital budget
get it.
season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finance and ask for direction and guidance.
Yep. But I think we'll move it on to finance and then, and it'll get worked out there one way or the other. And then
They're pretty smart people.
Yeah.
Us too, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
No, and that was my point too, and I agree with Councillor Yankoff. It's just that, Scott, there's no way that, I think it'd be an easier sell if we can find the 300,000 in 2022, 2023 budget in order for us to speak for the new council in 2023, 24 budget for an extra $300,000. And I think those are going to be questions that we're going to be asked, is because all projects are not going ahead and things along that line. And Councillor Duffy and I both sit on finance too, so we're going to be hearing this the second time or the third time when we get there. But it's hard for me to say yes to the capital budget for the following year when it's not even been looked at. You know.
Why don't we ask for advice from the county council?
I think we've done this before, so I think we'll probably look at our past practice and we'll bring back a recommendation when we go to finance with it, which will be next week or the week after next. It is an issue.
It is an issue.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
We're spending money we don't have right now. All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's money like we all could be replaced and the next thing you know, they're saying, what's the last comes in? Yeah, okay, that's great.
Okay,
So
so,
it's going to finance.
okay, so we'll need a mover and a seconder then for the resolution, if we're all ready to do that.
The resolution doesn't say we're sending it to finance, we need to.
Well, it does, but I guess we could have it put in
The
there.
recommendation says,
Yeah, but the recommendation is not what we're voting on, we're voting on a resolution.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be in the
Yeah.
public record.
Well,
You're
yeah,
voting on the resolution to move forward to finance, so which is, that, We never put that in the resolution. So the resolution is always it's draft. So if we want to, in future, we can put a watermark behind it saying draft, but that is the draft resolution that will end up at council, so. Correct, yes, yeah,
First,
yeah,
with recommendation.
yeah.
I mean,
So this is, we are then approving a draft resolution to go to finance.
Correct.
So it either has to have the watermark or we need to state it in.
We've never done it, but it's something that if we want to change practices as a corporation, we can definitely look at that. I think that's something we should look at.
I mean, yeah, for the benefit of today, we can always just at the very end where it says be accepted and that it upon financial review and recommendation.
Subject.
Yeah, subject to finance review. Okay, so to
I'm
be
good with that.
accepted, subject to finance recommendation. Approval, whatever, yeah, finance approval. Okay, I'll need a mover and a second. Moved by Council Ramsey, seconded by Council Duffy. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, everybody. Great discussion, and anytime we are spending money, it's good that we do discuss it, so much appreciated. Now, we do have a couple of things under introduction of new business. I believe, Alana, you had the first request, so you got the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And a question to the Chair, through the Chair, perhaps to our Manager of Public Works, Mr. Adams. Just looking for an update on the COVID patio project, and I know it's a partnership, it falls under this committee as well as Fire and Police. And just wondering about an update on the patio that has just recently shown up, and it is taking one of our accessibility parking spots, and just looking for a little update from you, Mr. Adams, on that.
Certainly. So that patio, so the patio program is administered through the police department, but we provide input on any new any of the new requests. So that was approved at the beginning of the year, and because it was a new restaurant, they had to have it manufactured, and it was just recently built, and they put it out just to make sure it fit in the space. It will be going back into storage at the end of the year, like every other patio. So part of the agreement was there is one accessible spot that it does take up, but the part of the agreement was we would relocate that patio or that accessible parking to the nearest parking spot that is available to the corner. So it's just 2 spots down. The patio has also been designed that it doesn't take up the full 2 parking spots that it's in, so that folks who are using the accessible parking spot have more than enough room to maneuver around, because sometimes you see a lot of these patios, they're right up to the parking line, which is not ideal because we need to design parking spaces typically that there's a shared space there between vehicles that share to get in and out of their vehicles. So that was part of the agreement, and the business owner was happily obliged to work with us on that one. So that's so during when that patio is put out, the accessible spot will be adjusted, and then when it's put away in the winter, we'll move it back to the corner, so it's at the closest spot to the to Victoria Row. And just another on accessible parking, we have been made aware that with the new library open, it just got missed, but we will be putting in an accessible parking spot for the library as well. So folks can use that as well to access the library.
Thank you. And just a follow-up from that. So just to be clear, that patio that's there now will be removed by October 31st, I believe, is our deadline.
That's correct. It, like every patio in the city has to be removed from the public right of way.
And that this
At
one,
October
along with
31st.
some of the others, they fell under the COVID patio project. So this year, all of those need to be reevaluated, and a decision of the council of the day will make that decision on whether or not the COVID patios will proceed in the following years.
That would have to go to police. I'm not sure of the bylaw and the terminology and how that program works. Our involvement is solely the police come to us and said there has been approval for an additional patio at this location. How does that impact the public right of way, and what adjustments do they need to make to suit our needs, the public needs, to make it work?
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. And I think that going forward, we should probably always apply the accessibility lens to any of these decisions going forward. I think we can really do better when it comes to accessibility. So thank
yeah.
you so much.
For me, I think we should not try to move any accessibility parking spots. I mean, because once you open the floodgate, then they're all going to want to do it and have a bigger patio and whatnot. But because does get a little confusing for folks that are well, wait a minute, it was 2 spots down there, now it's back up here. I think it's best that we try and have a joint with the police and say, look, accessible spots are there for a reason and they're not moving. And that should be the way, that's how I would see it anyway. But I think, these folks, half the time the spots aren't even being used properly anyway. But I think, now we're going to start moving them around. I think it's not a good idea. And I think, Alana, you hit the nail on the head there. Thank you very much. You have something under new business. Oh, yeah.
About a year ago, we talked here in this council chamber about health and safety issue down at the bottom of Fitzroy Street, LED lights versus
Oh, right.
decorative,
Right.
lights. I don't think we've ever resolved it.
No, we
I think
didn't.
the difference, His worship and I had a discussion, we were both on different sides of the issue, different sides of the issue. He was promoting more $134,000 expenditure on 9 decorative lights, where I was more of the position where we should be having 3 or 4 LED lights with the hierarchy that spreads the power out, and that would be 4, that would be $34,000. So there's a difference in the cost of $100,000. And I think Mr. Higgins will bear me out. Was that about a year ago that we?
Yeah.
That we checked up on it maybe 3 or 4 months ago. It was about a year ago. I'm not looking for an update. I'm just looking for a refreshment of the thing, and that's kind of what an update is, I guess. How's it going?
So I did reach out to my contacts prior to Fiona. I haven't got word back just because they've been busy. So once I get an update on what we can do down there, I know there were some land issues because we ran into that when we were looking at the old-fashioned lanterns as well. So we're not sure if we can put in new poles or what type of easements we have to do. So there's some challenges around that to add additional poles in there. And that was some of the things we had kind of worked out with the old-fashioned lanterns. But poles, Maritime Electric has specific spots that they have to put their poles and such, so it makes it a little more challenging.
And it should be realized, Mr. Adams, that once you're coming down Fitzroy Street, once you cross over Rochford Street, the first pole you see is the high LED light. That's the start, okay? Up until that point, they're all decorative lights. Once you get down around the bend that we're trying to light up, guess what? When you get to the corner of Terry Fox Drive, and Brighton Road, that intersection there, straight out Brighton Road, you have LED lights so there's a gap there. And the other side of the issue is arguing we should put decorative lights in there. I'm saying, no, it's a waste of money, $100,000. Somebody started the trend to start the aluminum lights with LED around the bend. We have one light there, and we have a whole string of them at the other end of the gap. So it only dictates to me to save money for safety and continuity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy, and like Scott will work with his contact to try and bring that back. Okay, thank you. Councillor Yankoff, one more.
Yeah, just more of a follow-up
Okay.
on that, being that it's in my ward. I guess what we need to identify is the purpose of the lighting. Is
Bingo.
it for tourism and decor, or is it about safety? And so if we've identified that it's about safety, then we look at LED lighting. At this stage, I don't know if there's a long-term tourist idea of these antique lights, but if this is about safety, then we have the answer to our question, and that is the LED. But I don't have the answer to that question because there hasn't been any more discussion about that long-term vision of the downtown area of Charlottetown, that they considered that as well.
And it's the folks there that have recently built that new home.
Right.
Those are people that have the concern, and their concern is safety. Yeah.
So, Mr. Adams, you're hearing all this? We are. Poor Scott, we throw it back at you. But anyway, so when you get in touch with the contacts and you come back, perhaps that could be the key mark. Is this for safety or is this for tourism and looks? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I need one more motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Ramsey and seconded by Councillor Duffy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Michael?